the rise of an empire from the dark depths of the sea, the return of the plague, and calamities in Brazil. 2025 is shaping up to be a pretty horrific year, according to Nostradamus, so let's talk about some of his darkest predictions for 2025. From the depths a ruler will rise, empires will fall, and new waves will reign. The Aquatic Empire from the realm of the ocean. This ominous prediction from Nostradamus is supposedly said to play out this year. A lot to unpack with this one. From the depths a ruler will rise? That sounds like it could be pretty metaphorical. If the quote ended there, I'd think it meant that some unknown power-hungry person would come to power, not literally someone rising up from under the water. But then he doubles down by referencing waves and caps it off, writing about an aquatic empire from the realm of the ocean. Not much room for metaphor at that point. It pretty clearly means something bad rising up from the water. So what could it be? Could he be talking about dangerous rising sea levels? Maybe, but that's something we've tread on plenty of times on the channel before. Pun very much intended. So here's another thing to consider when it comes to this aquatic empire thing. How about all those mysterious drones that have been showing up recently? There were reports of 50 drones flying out from the Atlantic Ocean near New Jersey. Could this be a sign of what Nostradamus was writing about? Maybe Nostradamus wasn't just talking about rising seas. What if he was predicting the rise of a literal aquatic empire? Aliens who have been holding up deep in the ocean since the beginning of time, finally ascending from the watery depths to wage war on the people of the land. This isn't necessarily a new idea. Stories of underwater kingdoms or forces rising from the depths have always intrigued people, but with more and more of these UAP sightings, it's starting to feel just a little less like fantasy. Maybe. All I'm saying is I think the government should really look into constructing giant mechs to battle the monstrous beasts that are going to be climbing out of the water to trample our cities. Quote, cruel wars and the outbreak of an ancient plague are also predicted to play out in England in 2025. Poor Europe. Baba Vanga also predicted horrible conflict erupting there this year. The idea of plague is nothing new, especially after the chaos of the little pandemic in 2020. Nostradamus was known for his eerie accuracy in some past predictions, and with the world still recovering from the effects of that global health crisis, him predicting that there will be another devastating plague, something way worse, definitely not something anyone wants to hear. In his writings, he talked about a resurgence of an old disease, one that could ravage the population, possibly even more deadly than any war. Some analysts believe this could refer to a new, more aggressive form of an old illness, maybe one from 2020, but it could also mean something like the Black Death, which decimated Europe centuries ago, and that would really suck. And mix in all the war and social unrest, and you got a recipe for a pretty crappy year for Europe. Now, moving on to Brazil. Nostradamus had some pretty wild predictions for what he called the Garden of the World, which some have interpreted to mean Brazil. He warned of flooding and volcanic activity and mentioned the country being, quote, seized and plunged into the tub and forced to drink waters poisoned by sulfur. Certainly sounds like a natural disaster to me. Flooding is already a big problem in Brazil, especially with deforestation, climate change making storms and heavy rains more intense, but the volcanic part, that's a bit trickier. Brazil isn't really known for active volcanoes, but just south of it in countries like Chile, well, they've had eruptions. The area is full of shifting tectonic plates, so it's not completely out of the question that Brazil could see volcanic activity, and Nostradamus' mention of poisoned waters could be pointing to the country's rising pollution levels. Rivers and oceans are getting more contaminated from things like industrial waste, deforestation, and oil spills, so maybe this prediction is a metaphor for a struggle with environmental damage and how it's leading to more natural disasters. Let's stay on this topic of natural disasters for a moment though, because Nostradamus wrote about them a lot. He had a pretty grim take on natural disasters in that they would only get worse, eventually leading to the destruction of mankind. At least some interpret. Again, his writing is often pretty nebulous with a lot of metaphor. He wrote, "The dry earth will grow more parched and there will be great floods when it is seen. That's a pretty biblical sounding warning, but some people are looking around at the current world we're living in and wondering if this could be referring to the extreme weather we're already seeing. Last year alone, we had some major hurricanes: Beryl, Milton, and Helene. Helene ended up being the deadliest hurricane to hit the US mainland since Katrina in 2005. And then there were the catastrophic floods in Afghanistan and Pakistan, where over 1,000 people lost their lives. Of course, natural disasters happen every year, and they've happened all throughout history, but there's been a noticeable increase in how frequent and intense they are, making Nostradamus' prediction feel eerily relevant. So, are we really seeing the signs of what he described as the end times? Personally, I think people tend to look at esoteric writing like this and pull from it what makes sense to them. It's just natural for us to draw comparisons to the world around us. But regardless of how you feel about so-called seers, deadly natural disasters do seem to be happening more frequently. Next is Nostradamus' prediction of an asteroid collision. He specifically spoke of a giant stone causing massive destruction, and 2025 is the year that this could apparently happen. In his words, "From the cosmos a fireball will rise, a harbinger of fate. The world pleads science and fate in cosmic dance, the fate of the earth, a second chance." Sounds pretty horrifying, but at least he said we'd get a second chance. Now, we know that near-Earth asteroids pass by our planet all the time. In fact, hundreds of them swing by Earth safely each year without causing any issues, but the idea of a massive asteroid hitting Earth is still a real possibility, one that scientists are constantly keeping their eyes on. Space agencies like NASA track the orbits of large asteroids, and while we haven't had a major collision in modern times, history shows us that asteroids have caused mass extinction in the past. Now, there's comfort in the fact that if a massive asteroid were on a collision course with our planet, space agencies would know about it well in advance. But at this point, we still don't have a tried and true method of handling one. Technology is being developed because eventually we'll probably need it, but fingers crossed, it just won't be this year. Nostradamus wasn't just fixated on disaster and plague though, he also made some predictions about global politics, saying great powers will clash, which sounds like a pretty clear reference to the ongoing conflicts that we're seeing around the world today, with rising tensions between countries like the US and China, the ongoing war in Eastern Europe, and constant power struggles in the Middle East. It feels like we're seeing exactly what Nostradamus might have been hinting at, but he also predicted a decrease in the influence of established Western countries and the rise of new world powers. If you look at how countries like China and India are becoming more influential economically and politically, you could see this shift happening. The West, especially the US and Europe, used to have a lot of control over global decisions, but we're witnessing a rise in new powers that are shaking things up. So things are definitely changing. Will it be good? Will it be bad? We'll just have to wait and find out. On the bright side though, not all of Nostradamus' predictions were dark and doom-filled. He also foresaw major advancements in medicine, especially when it comes to treating illnesses and preventing them before they even start. In 2025, we could see some huge breakthroughs, like the rise of personalized medicine, where treatments are tailored to individual genetics, making them way more effective. AI-powered healthcare is starting to make waves, with machines able to analyze health data faster and more accurately than humans. In fact, it's possible that we'll see new treatments for conditions like dementia, Alzheimer's, and chronic diseases, which have been really hard to manage until now. Nostradamus might have been predicting the future of healthcare, where technology and science come together to create these highly effective treatments that could change the way we approach medicine for the better. Not sure how much of a difference this will make if his other predictions play out, but let's just hope he was wrong about those, or that we've been misunderstanding his words. Nostradamus also predicted a, quote, very great famine through pestiferous wave, which sounds pretty unsettling. The wave part could be something like tsunamis destroying crops, but then there's the word pestiferous, which means harmful or disease causing. So this could also mean the famine is caused by something that ruins crops, like a disease of some kind. Pests, you know? I mentioned global conflict earlier as well. Maybe it's something like toxic gas released in a war or radiation messing up the environment, causing crops to die? Well, let's try and end things on a positive note. With all the talk of war, asteroids, plagues, and death, it's nice to know that Mr. Negative also predicted an end to a big conflict of some kind this year, writing, "Through long war, all the army exhausted, so that they do not find money for the soldiers. Instead of gold or silver, it will come to coin leather, Gallic brass, and the crescent sign of the moon." Like a lot of his work, this is pretty vague, but with news of a possible ceasefire to what's been a very prolonged conflict over in the Middle East, maybe there's some truth to this one. I know I certainly hope so. And with all that said, I will catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video if we're all still alive.